Welcome to the UP Homebuyers Summit. This is a live free virtual conference for UP homebuyers and sellers. And we're going to be featuring 5 top speakers with a whole range of expertise in the UP real estate market industry who will be sharing their best tips and strategies to help you get your best deal on your next home purchase or sale in the UP. I'm your host, Ona Martin, live streaming it here on Live the UP. And I want to let you all know that this is meant to be an interactive event. So don't hold back on your questions. If you have questions, type them into the comments below because we have amazing speakers and they're here to help you. So buying property in the UP, just like anywhere else, has its own unique challenges. These experts are here to answer your questions, help you have a great experience. So be sure anytime a question pops up in your mind as you're listening to a speaker, just type that into the comments box below. If you would like to attend live here on Zoom and ask your questions in person, we'd love to have you join us right here. And you would just need to go to the pinned post at the top of the page and you'll find the link there to register. So before I introduce our first speaker, let me give you a quick rundown of our agenda today and all the amazing speakers we have lined up for you. At 10 a.m., we're going to be welcoming Frida Waara of RE/MAX with an amazing presentation. I'll be introducing her in just a minute. At 11 a.m., we have a financial advisor, Ryan Lemire from Edward Jones, presenting on smart home finance for long-term security. And he'll also bring in a guest presenter, Thomas Barrett from Hartford Funds. And at 12 noon, we have our event sponsor, Rich Beasley, who's a certified home inspector, and he's going to be sharing the telltale signs, how to tell if a home is worth the price tag. At 1 p.m., we have Stephanie Jones, a realtor from Select Realty, who is an accredited real estate educator, and she will be sharing on real estate ethics. So I think that is absolutely a dope miss session. At 2 p.m., join us for how to save on closing costs and finance your home repairs with Freddie Mac Match-Up Program and Construction Loan. This could be a fantastic topic from Anthony Zorza, Senior Mortgage Loan Officer from Embers Credit Union. And finally, at 3 p.m., join us for our first-time homebuyers Q&A panel. Any questions that you've got, no matter, there's no question too basic to bring to that panel or too complex. So even if you're not a first-time homebuyer, you're welcome to come and get your questions answered. And that'll be at 3 p.m. right here on Live the UP. All right, so finally, a big shout out to our sponsor, UP Home Inspection, LLC, providing quality home inspection services to the central and western UP, including home inspections, radon testing, water testing, and mold testing. So without further ado, please join me in giving a warm welcome to our very first speaker, Frida Waara, who is an amazing real estate agent from RE/MAX. Welcome, Frida, and so glad that you could join us this morning.
Thank you, Ona. Thank you so much for being the person to pull this all together, because certainly when it comes to buying and selling a home, you need a lot of guidance, and appreciate that. And also UP Home Inspection for being there, because that's most important. One of the first contingencies always when you're writing that contract for purchase.
Right, absolutely. Well, Frida, I am so thrilled that you could join us because you have such expertise in this subject matter. I'm just going to introduce you briefly, and Frida's just like, I've worked with her myself. She's amazing. So anything is possible when you have the right team. Frida's motto is love where you live, and she is dedicated to helping you find your piece of paradise too. Frida knows all the ins and outs of the Marquette market and beyond. She brings an enthusiasm and joy to the process that makes her so fun to work with, and I can totally attest to that. Her passion for telling stories about the Upper Peninsula and other wild places is matched only by her decades of expertise and 5-star professionalism. I can attest to that too. Frida and her husband have been Marquette County business owners for over 3 decades, so you can count on her to also help you find your fit for your business if you're looking for commercial property. So thank you so much for joining us, Frida. Frida's going to be speaking on how to steer clear of Yooper bloopers, the uncommon questions UP homeowners should ask before they buy. And it's, oh, we all know things are always different here in the UP, which is why we love it, but it's something that, you know, we need to be aware of. And I'm going to go ahead and let you take the wheel here, Frida.
Thank you, Ona, and hallelujah for that difference, that's for sure. One thing that's not so different about the UP is that we, like the rest of the country, are really in an inventory squeeze. We have found that most of the country is looking for homes because home, COVID has taught us, has never been more important. And home is not just covered square footage with a zip code, it is truly where we find our nest. And I think the ability to work from home has brought the spotlight to the UP. Folks have been coming here vacationing for a long time, centuries really, but now they're saying, if I can live anywhere, this is where I want to live. And grateful that real estate has never been more valuable. When you look at just the ability to purchase a home, that's huge. And you're going to be talking about that more this afternoon. But just to share with people, I did a quick scan today. And when we look at a 30-year fixed mortgage, 2.87%, 15's at 2.19. And if you were going to do a 10-year fixed, you're under 2% at 1.974. A lot of times the first-time home buyers get really nervous about seeing that interest rate, but I can attest that back in the 80s, when we bought our first home, we were paying 16.64% in 1981. So there's never been a better time to buy a house. Finding that house, that's the tricky part about it, and get into that in a second, but just looking at that home. Now, if you're gonna sell your home, we gotta find a place for you to move to too, because you're still, you know, living in a tent in the UP in January is not exactly the best idea, but nationally, we look at home values are up 9.9% over the year. And folks that I've talked with anticipate that number for 2021 will jump to 11.4%. So you want to get in there when you can now and making that decision. For the sellers looking at where that home value has gone to, if we look just in the UP, we just ended our first quarter, so that was done March 31st. And when I looked back at numbers and I used April 17th as a number, we have sold in this last quarter basically 933 sales in the UP. And last year we only had 687 for that first quarter. So we are up significantly, figuring that's quite an increase. Also, the average price for the home has gone from 157,000 to 161. That's just around the entire UP. When we look at what homes are available, because that's the inventory that we're looking at, in the entire UP, 15 counties, we have about 876 active single-family homes. They'll say active in the MLS, some of those could already be under contract. And when we say under contract, that means that the seller has found a buyer and they've come to an agreement on price. They're not listed as pending yet, and obviously not closed because the money hasn't exchanged yet. In that active file, when we have a PWC or pending with contingency, what that means is when you go to purchase a home, the first thing that you're going to probably want is a home inspection. That's really important, and that will likely be your first contingency. We like to get that done within the first 10 days of being under contract, because if a deal falls apart, often that's the first place it's going to fall apart. It also might be that things get discovered through that inspection where they're going to have to go in and renegotiate, whether it's a roof or perhaps it's even an easement for a driveway. We got to work those things out. The second contingency will be the lender. So the buyer and seller can come to an agreement on the purchase of a home, but it's the bank, if you're using bank support, that has to be the final say. So that appraisal is going to be that second contingency. And from contract to close is usually about 45 days. So guesstimate about a month and a half at the fastest. That's what we're seeing right now. It can be a little bit faster. And of course, if it's a cash deal, it can happen even quicker, but that's the timing that we usually have for that. So you've got that time frame in there that you're working with. So when we look at the whole UP, we've got 876 homes currently for sale. 245 of those are in Marquette. Well, we're the biggest county with the highest population. Second highest county is Delta. Their second population. It's very interesting that the third county with the highest number of homes for sale is Iron County. And they're at just 12,000 people in population. So kind of interesting to see where that's coming from. That could mean that there are more second homes for sale there. It might be that people now have decided that they are going to be leaving the area. It might be that there's a little nest there of folks who've decided that they're snowbirds. They're leaving Iron County in the winter. They found their home in Lake Havasu or in Crystal Springs, and they're going to stay down south now. So I'm not sure what's creating that exodus, but that's where we find that the third largest county for homes for sale, and that's 83 homes in Iron County. When you look at the city of Marquette itself, so that's another thing. People say, I want to move to Marquette. And I let them know why. And it's probably lifestyle, they've chosen it. But if they're looking for a place where they need a little bit more room to roam, or the idea that they might not be living full-time in the UP and they want to use their home as an investment in a rental property. Now in Marquette, that might not be where they're going to choose, because Marquette has put a limit on the homes that can be rented within the city limits for short-term rental. That's what we call short-term, is that vacation rental. Long-term rental is still there. We're a college town. Certainly there's an opportunity for investment properties in a college town if you're looking for someone else that's basically putting the equity into your mortgage by having those tenants there. But you might need to go a little bit farther out. So you can still appreciate the advantages of the city of Marquette when you live in Marquette Township or Chocolate Township or Sands Township, Scandia, Negaunee Township, all those other areas. So lots to look at. And when I have someone coming from outside the area and they say they want to move to the UP, my list of questions to them is, why? What is it that you want to do? And when they tell me, I want to be off grid, I don't want any neighbors, we have to have that discussion, because sometimes when they say, I don't want any neighbors, I want 80 acres, what they really mean is they don't want to smell what their neighbor's cooking for dinner. And that's a little bit different here. We know that you can get a sizable lot. You might even be just on 3 acres and you don't see your neighbors, but you're sharing a road. That's really important. Number one is looking at access. When somebody tells me they want 80 acres out in the woods off grid, we begin with, do you plan to be there all year long? Because unless you have a plow truck, you might not be able to get into that 80 acres if you're not on a county road. It could be a seasonal road. The idea of seasonal road is still very odd for a lot of people to understand. They don't realize that it might not be plowed or paved. Number two, when they say off grid, I want to ask them if they're willing to do what it takes. Now, I live half the week off grid. It's a sunny day in the UP. We'll be heading to camp in a little bit here. We're off grid. Some things I've learned about that: from May 1st to October 1st, we're in great shape. Our solar panels do a wonderful job. We can run a washer and a dryer. We can take showers. We can have a dishwasher going. We can turn some lights on. That's not a problem. We don't watch television all day long. After all, it's sunny summer in the UP, so that's easy. But just what is your use going to be? If somebody says I need to be online on my computer working remotely, you better just look at that. And then basically October 1st through the end of April, you're going to be probably relying on a propane generator. So you better make sure that wherever that propane tank is positioned, somebody can get in there to fill it, because it may need a fill come February. This last winter was very mild. We did not have the same propane usage. I think most folks that live with propane instead of natural gas to be delivered can attest to that. So those are things that you look at. The other thing you want to make sure of is you want to buy this land. Well, are you going to live there, or are you just going to go enjoy it? If you're going to live there, chances are you're going to need water. And if you bring in a well, you got to put in a septic. The county's going to require that if there's a water source, there's got to be a place that it's going to go. Unless you're building a sauna and it's just a pitcher pump that's going to be for bathing. That's a whole other ball game. But, and not to say that you can't have an outhouse. Those are fine. You can work that out. Check with your township for the requirements for that, because it will have to be inspected. But I like for folks to just kind of get a feel for what it means when you're digging a well. We didn't realize our well was 180 feet deep, and it's pushing the water another 120 feet up on the hill. We're off grid. We needed a special pump for that. It's not the traditional pump that you put at a well. It has to be a pump that works with a solar energy, and that just requires a little bit slower mechanism in it to be able to work. But those are things to consider. And if you choose a spot that's pretty rocky, or it's really close to a water source like a lake, for example, if you were going to be some places that you're going to have a mounted septic. Shot Point here in Marquette is one of those examples. Chances are, because of where that water table is, you're going to have a mounted septic. And what is that additional cost going to be? So those are things that I like to relate to folks, because, you know, just like financial planning, we're not taught these things. And chances are your folks, if your parents and you're using them as a guide, they may not have ever purchased land that was off grid and built a home on it. Home prices too. I don't know what you plan to build, and if you're going to plan to build that with your own labor, but just do another check on what it's going to cost for materials. Because ask anybody right now in the building trades, they'll let you know how much materials have just escalated. Not to mention, just if you're going to try to go buy a stove or a refrigerator or a dishwasher from a local vendor, it might be months before you can get that delivery. So few things there that you want to check on. We talked a little bit about access. Is there any easement that you have to record or that has to be in that legal description? Because that might affect your ability to get funding. And so will the ability to not have electricity or a well and septic. Folks that are coming from the cities, they have a great relationship with their lender there in the city. But if you throw some of those things to someone who's not accustomed to lending on homes that are without water, without a septic, homes that also may not be on a traditional power grid, that can really impact not only if you even get financing or what that financing rate might be. Another component that a lender is going to look at is if it's in a floodplain. That's really important. Everybody wants to be as close to the water as they can. Is that also going to impact your ability to get a mortgage and to get insurance on that home? So it's really important. You don't want to make those Yooper bloopers. You don't want to get excited like, man, oh man, I love this area. Do your homework, your due diligence on whether or not that is the site for you to be able to build that dream home. And I'm happy to discuss. There's probably a myriad of other questions that we go through depending on that township and the area where you're going to be building. But it's an important piece of your investment strategy to look right now at real estate when we're seeing the increases in the values of real estate. And I wanted to just step back again to say, in 2020, so right now from January 1 till April 17th, we've had 933 sales in our local North Central MLS. This time last year, those sales were at 687. So we're up considerably. And the price of a home has gone up from the 161 to 157. So it's up about 4,000. When we go back and look at just 2017, so 4 years ago, not very long, that average price was $119,000. And today it's 161. So that's a 35% increase in 4 years. So your investment strategy, make sure you check off all the boxes of what it is that you can afford. And I forgot to even mention this, taxes. We have traditionally very low taxes outside of the cities of Ishpeming, Negaunee, and Marquette, those 3 cities in our county. And frankly, Ishpeming is the highest for personal property taxes. Negaunee is second, and Marquette is third. Those tax rates are high for what we call PRE, primary residence. If you are a second home buyer in the city of Marquette or Negaunee or Ishpeming, you're paying, well, actually everywhere, you're paying more, but there it's going up to over 50 mils for that price on that home. So it's basically goes up about 11 mils, depending on whether that's your primary residence or if it's your camp or second home. So look at what the tax liability might be, even if you're out in Onoda Township, or perhaps you're up in Baraga and you're in Arvon Township, those places, just look at that fixed cost. And it doesn't really matter what the previous owner paid for taxes. To make sure people understand that. A lot of times they look, right away, a buyer say, what's the seller paying for taxes? Doesn't matter, because those taxes will change. They'll become uncapped at the sale. Now, they can't make a huge jump to the sale price. We've got a Headley amendment that kept that from happening, but it can start to escalate and try to match the new value that's established for that home. So that's important. I don't know if there's any questions yet so far, but I've kind of been on a roll here sharing with what it means to purchase a property in the Upper Peninsula. It is by far one of the most affordable places. I have to underline that our local lenders who understand if a property doesn't have a well or septic yet, or if it's not on grid, or perhaps there's an easement issue. An example that I have is I had some folks who the husband really never spent much time in the UP, but the wife grew up in Republic. And she said, we've got to have a camp. We just got to have a camp. I want 40 acres. I got to have a camp. I have to have a sauna. And of course, I love that she was bringing that to the point, but the idea that they needed to buy this camp. And when we found the perfect camp for them, it was surrounded by state land. And that state buffer prohibited them from getting the legal easement to get into their camp. And I had to stop something. I didn't realize that my robo is taken off and it's making some noise. I apologize for that. They went to buy this camp, and the state of Michigan very rarely will grant an easement over state land. Now, they won't prohibit you from getting that land, but they are getting to that land, but they aren't going to grant a legal easement. So their lender, who was down in the thumb of Michigan, said, nope, I can't lend on this. We found them a lender locally who understands that issue. If you're looking for land in the UP, one of the things I advise you to do is grab a plat book for that county. They're about 50, 55 bucks, but it's a good investment. Because when you say you want 40 acres or 80 acres or 100 acres, or I want a whole section of land, a whole section would be 1 mile square, and we don't have a lot of those for sale. But still, if you're looking for big chunks of land, maybe you don't need that much land personally to own it. What you can do is be nested in an area with forest lands or state land or even national forest lands. You might have forestry lands and then also the U.S. Forest Service land. So for an example, my camp is only 8 acres, but it's nested in the Hiawatha National Forest in Alger County, and it adjoins 19 sections of land. That's huge. I could never own that. I could never pay for that, but it gives me that same resource that I can walk it. If you do want a large chunk of land and you're trying to, again, to whittle down a little bit of your tax liability for that, you may very well be interested in putting your land in CFR, so commercial forestry land, which comes with a whole set of rules for that advantage and when it comes to tax time, but looking at that as just an ability for you to be able to own a large chunk of land and still be making it affordable for your family budget. So I hope I'm answering some good questions there, and well, looking forward to some questions, but I hope I'm also prompting some thoughts.
Question from Facebook. It's from Russ Bergman. He's asking, what is the average cost of a great house going for? So I'm looking for the higher end homes.
Oh, you know, we don't have a lot going over $300 a square foot here. So, but it's knocking at it. You know, condos are above $300 a finished square foot, but you basically would let that be your guide. I would guess that would be the guide.
Okay, great, thank you. Yeah, and I had a question actually myself about building versus buying. Is that something that people come in a lot with, just this question in their mind? They're looking for their perfect place, but they're willing to do both. Do you have any insights on kind of those people who are thinking about both?
Yep, exactly. And two parts to that question. Thank you for that, because that's really popular. It's tough. Folks have been watching HGTV and they want it to be just perfect. And you won't necessarily find that perfect home for you. You need to find something that maybe can become that perfect home. So I would guess that let's look at the hidden costs before you even get to enjoy a dwelling. How long will it be and how much will it cost just to get you to a place where maybe you don't even have the furniture in yet, but you can go and enjoy it? So number one, time frame for a contractor to build your home. Go shopping. I know Wilbur Construction, for example, in the area, we've been talking with them a little bit. They are now taking jobs 2 years out. They are so busy. And I'm guessing that's pretty much the same for contractors all across the UP. Add to it, we don't know what those prices are going to be. So when you talk to a contractor, they'll likely give you a cost, but it may have a little bit of elastic in it because we don't know what's going to happen to those materials in that meantime. And then, as I mentioned earlier, if you're just buying a vacant piece of land, what is the cost to put in your driveway, clear the building site? Now, you might think that, oh, I can get in there with a chainsaw and take care of that. If you've got some large hemlocks or some large beeches or maples, those might be beyond your scope of ability, and you may very well need to hire someone to help you clear that site. You're going to need an excavator. Even if you're not going to build a basement, you're going to probably need to do some excavating for those footings. So put those costs together in addition to a power drop. And if the power's at the road, that's insignificant. But if you have to go any distance, and you're also going to need to put in that well and septic. So look at those costs and really put together that budget before you think, and then go and compare. When you get that number in your head, put it together. And of course, your lender is going to be the one that's going to help you put that number in your head. A lot of it's going to be what you feel comfortable with, but you're also going to be looking at what that construction loan will be, and then that it'll fold into your regular mortgage. So those prices are part of it. And it's really a good time. If anybody's already done their taxes for 2020, that's what you need to take to your lender. You need to take them, all of your financial records and those kinds of things. So perfect timing for you to go make that appointment with the lender. Now, rebuilding, you've got a place to live in the meantime. So depending on what that calendar is before you're even going to be able to move in, can you go 6 months, maybe 9 months? Right now, we still have weight restrictions on the road, so cement trucks aren't moving yet. So when is it that you really can get the shovel in the ground to get moving on your dwelling? And whenever I look at a house with someone, my common words, and certainly I know my clients are probably chuckling at this, but I look with them and I say, remember, everything you're buying is what you can't change. The home that I'm living in right now, it totally changed. It took a while, it took some money, but it totally changed. What we wanted was the location. So what you really need to look at when you're buying is, do you like the location? Do you like the waterfront or the trees or the hills, or how far it is from work, or how far it is from the kids' school? Those things are what are important. Because when it comes to remodeling, I have a client that bought a condo and she basically said, I don't like where the kitchen is. And she moved the dining room and the kitchen. And I mean, rooms all swapped around. It was still the same roof because it was a condo, but the inside totally changed. So that, again, it's going to take some money, but in the meantime, you've got a place to live. And that might be most important.
A lot of stuff to consider. Thank you. We've got a couple more questions here on Facebook coming in, and then I think we'll need to start thinking about wrapping up. So Russ is asking again, do retailers, I think he maybe, Russ, correct me if I'm wrong here on Facebook, do you mean real estate agents? He's asking, do retailers work with the VA on a first-time home buyer?
Absolutely, absolutely. And VA requirements are a little bit stiffer. So depending on what you are looking for, realtors know what the VA requirements are. Same thing with rural development. We're helping you know right away when we walk in a home, this isn't going to qualify for a rural development or a VA loan. But both of those come from your lender. So you make sure that you get in with a lender that offers VA and that offers rural development loans. But they're fantastic. Fantastic. Yep.
Perfect, thank you. And then Mickey Wood is asking, what are your thoughts on a home, and you have a few minutes here to answer this. What are your thoughts on a home that is RD qualified and approval at 150,000 that is not in need of work or updating for 2021? Looking for half an acre minimum zone to agriculture within 25 miles of Marquette. And Mickey, you also may want to correct me here. I think she's asking about availability of a property. She's looking for wincing.
It's going to be tough, but it's not impossible. And depending, RD, again, it's got some requirements, but that's all right. We can maybe make that happen. Probably going to have to look a little bit farther, like Scandia or maybe even Ely Township or Humboldt, somewhere a little bit outside of that. It's not impossible. Let me tell you, it's not. But be prepared that you might need to go in and do some replacements yourself. And the best thing is to look at, do you have the square footage that you can add value to? So if you're in the mood, you want to get in that home, you're okay doing some of that fix up, paint up, clean up, some work yourself. There's never been a better time for the folks that know how to lay new floor covering, paint, put in some new cabinets. If you want to add value to your home, a half bath, you betcha. That makes such a difference. Is there a garage? We're in the UP. That's, like when people say what they want, it's not HGTV. They're like, a garage and a basement and I need storage. Is there some other aspect where you can add value to that home? Because if you decide this is where you're going to start building your investment accounts, putting in a day of work on your home in the UP has never had such great returns.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Frida. And I know that I wish we could have you on longer because there's just such a wealth of information. If you are listening here and you have questions for Frida, tell them where they can reach out to you.
You betcha. Just give me a call, 906-360-9765 is my phone. And then my email address is real simple. It's just Frida, my name, and that's Friday without a Y, at Frida Waara, and that's a Finlander way, so there's a lot of A's in there, FRIDAWAARA.com. But happy to help you. You can also reach me through the RE/MAX office. And truly, I want to just share that it might be tough. You might be competing. Get your paperwork together, get that lender, because when you go in and you find the house that you want, you have to act fast. You got to jump at it and find a realtor that is ready to jump, and they're with you in that we're teaming up, and we're going to go in there and do our very best. And for those that are sellers, basically right now, folks, we're telling you that that list price is the beginning. Chances are you're going to be above list price when we go to sell your home. So it's a good place to be for both buyers and sellers. And I've never seen the perfect storm like this.
Wow. Yeah, it's a crazy market right now. Can you share your phone number one more time? I want to put it in the comments here on Facebook. So that
Sure thing. 906-360-9765. And you can text or call at that number. And I have to apologize if I don't get back with you yet today. I've got to go show some property, and it's out in the bush to some folks coming up from Green Bay. So I might not be able to answer right away, but certainly I'll get back to you, and happy to answer any questions. It's a big deal to buy or sell a home, and you want to be with somebody that you trust and that you know has a good feel for the experience.
Yeah, perfect. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us, and have fun. I know you've got some showings today, so have fun out in the bush. It's a beautiful day for it.
Yeah.
All right.
What is that in the sky? The sun, right?
It's amazing, isn't it?
And thank you, Anna, for putting this together. It's wonderful
Welcome.
to serve the folks out there looking at the UP.
Yeah, that's what we're doing it for. All right. Well, thanks so much, and we'll catch you again.
All right.
All right, so for everybody else, we are going to take a quick about 10-minute or so break, and then we will meet everybody right back here on the Live the UP Facebook page live. And what's coming up is Smart Home Finance for Long-Term Security with Ryan Lemire from Edward Jones and a special guest, Tom Barrett from the Hartford Fund. So don't miss that. That's going to be awesome if you're looking at home financing. So we'll catch you again in about 10 minutes at the top of the hour. Oh, well, here we go.